So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just kind of give a little video tutorial of this Markdown documentation web page. So the first thing is this video you can watch to kind of go along with what we're doing. The first thing you want to do is download this Markdown file, and so that is going to be in a zip. So we'll open that to kind of look at what's going on. And if you do not have Typora open or installed on your computer, what you can do is just click on this link right here that will take you to Typora, and you can go ahead and download it off of this site. If you go to the download and then pick Windows or whatever operating system you're using. So I already have it on my computer. I'm going to close that. So basically what this website is going to show you is the most common things that I've used using Markdown language for documenting things. And so you can follow along with this Markdown site kind of to see what is going to show up on a web page. The other nice thing about Typora is if you hit Control / you can toggle back and forth between the Markdown and what it should be looking like. So here is what the code looks like. The first thing I'll talk about up here is the header. So if you type 3 dashes and hit enter, it should give you this gray kind of background, and this is where your front matter is going to go. For example, the title, I've called it Markdown Tips. If you look right here, that's going to be what shows up as kind of the title of the page. And if you have multiple pages over here, you can assign them a weight. Also up here in the front matter, say I had 5 pages in my folder and I wanted to make sure that this one was first. What I could do right here is type weight and put a 1, and then I would guarantee that that would show up at the top over here on this sidebar navigation. So going through, most important thing you'll probably want to use is this hashtag for a header. As you can see, one hashtag is obviously the biggest, going down to 5. And if we toggle back and forth in Typora, you can kind of see what that looks like, or what it should look like if we compare to the actual website. So I'm going to go back into the code just to kind of show what's going on here. We've got our headers. An important thing, you need to make sure you put a space after the hashtag. If you don't, you'll just see the hashtags and then the text, kind of like this. The interesting thing, it might not appear that way in here in Typora if you're toggling back and forth, but when you push it up onto GitHub, this is the way it will actually appear hosted on a web page. So you want to make sure that you add a space after your hashtag headers. The next thing I'll talk about is adding emphasis, whether that is italic or bold. The way you do that is with an asterisk or an underscore, 1 for italics, 2 for bold, and then if you want to do, say, something that's bolded and italicized, you'll you'll do an additional, say, underscore inside of the double asterisk that you've got. Strike through, you'll use 2 tildes. Another common thing you'll probably want to do is create a link, whether that's to a different page, to your research, something like that. And the way you do that is with the brackets, and what you'll put inside brackets is what you want your button to say. Then you'll put the link to where you want to go inside parentheses right after the brackets. For example, if I want to go to Google and have my button say go to Google, I'll toggle back so you can see what that looks like. Go to Google. And then if I go to the web page, you can see go to Google. If I click on that, that's going to open Google. So I'm going to go back. For example, the et al page, we can do that as well. That'll take you to the et al page. And I'll show you once again what that looks like in Typora. Down here. So that's what that will look like. If you want to post a picture, what you can do is you can either drag over an image from your Windows Explorer of wherever your image is located and kind of drag it in and put it in here in Typora. But then after you do that, you'll need to change the file path. And I forgot what this is called. I think it's like a relative file path, but basically if you put site base URL inside these double curly brackets, what that's going to do is reference whatever repository you're working with, and inside of each folder in your repository you'll have a docs folder, and that's going to be where you're going to want to save all of your documentation. For example, this is what my documentation docs folder looks like. I've got my index, that's basically the home page, and then I have got an assets folder, and within that assets folder I've got an images folder, and that's going to be where you want to save all your images that you'll then reference out of this site-based URL kind of file path. It will reference your assets, your images folder, and then within that images folder you'll want to save any of your images. If you're going to just type this out manually, you'll put an exclamation mark in front of the brackets, and that will reference an image instead of a page. So if you want to see what that looks like, if we toggle back here in Typora, it will give you kind of an error, image load failed, but because we're referencing that site-based URL, when we go to the actual web page, you'll see that it's working. An interesting thing, you can see if I hover over this one, you can say it says here's Joe, whereas this one there's nothing. If we look at our Markdown, the way I've done that is just added these quotes after the file path, and you can put whatever text you want in there to show if you're hovering over a picture. One way you can also use your picture as a button. Say I want to be able to click on this picture. What I would then do, for example, here in my Markdown document, I would just add brackets like this around that whole picture, and then I would put a parenthesis, and I could reference a web page or another image that was in my assets images folder, maybe a higher resolution picture of Joe or something. So that's how you would use a picture to be a button. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So we've talked about the assets, images, folders within your docs. So you want to show what some code is that you're using and you don't want it to show up like text. What you'll do is you'll add this hyphen around that, and so when you go to the web page, what that's going to look like is this. So you can tell that it has a different format. It looks like code. If you want to toggle in Typewriter and see what it looks like, that's what it looks like. The interesting thing about using Typewriter is you don't necessarily have to be in the actual Markdown to type something in Markdown. So say I want to say here's my code, and I just want to start typing in code, so I'll put a hyphen and I'll say, import library, and if I add a hyphen to the end of that, hit enter, there it is. Same with like your headers. If I just put in certain hashtags, put a space and say, code here, that'll just pop up. So you don't necessarily have to be in this Markdown version of Typewriter to get things to show up as you're typing them. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of that right now. For videos, what you can do is usually, say if we go to YouTube, actually this might already work on here. No, it doesn't. Let's go to YouTube, and let's say I want to look up Joe Wheaton, and I want to embed a video that Joe Wheaton's in. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that video, and usually in Vimeo or YouTube, Google Maps, things like that, you'll have something that says share or embed. If I click on that share button, there's the embed option. So I'm going to click on that. And what's that's going to then give me, hopefully, is some code right here. And what I want to do is copy that. And if I just paste that into my Typewriter page directly, basically that will embed your video into the page. So if we go back to our documentation page, this is what that video looks like, and so you can go ahead and play that from your page, and that could be from Vimeo or YouTube or Google Map or anything else that has an embed option. And then the last thing I just wanted to show is here is a link to another web page that someone else has created. Talks a little bit more about some other things within Markdown that you might want to use if that wasn't enough. I've tried to just put in my tutorial, kind of the things that I found useful that I've used. But if you are looking for more, you can go ahead there. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks.